forward are now having to be addressed. Number one, Fano Drive, which I'll address next. Number two, exorbitant site costs, very true, and I'll address next. The 20-year versus 30-year bond, which I'll address next. Policy, due diligence, and comprehensive planning and truth-telling matters. Pay attention when the leadership and rubber stampers, I think that might be meeting members. Censor those of us who are bringing forth information they don't want you to hear. The very reason they're here tonight is to share that information. It's usually because we are over the top. The numbers we have right now are somewhere between $6 and $8 million in savings. Under the top. So I want to address each one. Fano Drive. The writer of this is 100% correct. The site costs on this project were sky high because the building committee was unable to negotiate a deal with the owners of Fano Drive for that to become part of the project. Therefore, they had to design and build two massive bridges over wetlands. Those bridges were millions of dollars.
Excuse me, Tom.
Yes.
People are asking me, have you used the mic so
Thank
they
you.
can be heard?
Like this good? Details. I think it's. I hope they can hear me. That's right. It's on. So let's take the Fano Drive issue. In the absence of negotiating with Fano Drive, they had to design these very expensive bridges over wetlands. Big, big bridges, very expensive. About a week before the deadline passed for us to submit to the MSBA, Mark Tisdale and I approached the owners of Fano Drive. And through Mark Tisdale's brilliance, he showed an overview of the land they owned, which was Fano Drive, and land that we have no use for that the town owns. And Mark proved, and he showed it on GIS, and he proved to them that their value in potential buildable lots increases with them getting the land that we owned. So we proposed a land swap, no money exchange, and they agreed to it. It's going to be before town meeting next month. I'm sorry? Where was that? It's attached. They're all attached to Fano Drive, but on the other side. So they get more buildable lots, Peter, and we get Fano Drive, and there's no money exchanged. Okay, so I'm sorry. 8 acres to 8 acres, plus or minus a quarter of an acre on either side, because they're full lots. So the Fano Drive, you're going to get a presentation at Town Hall, if you're a town meeting member, at town meeting. It shows the exact lots, how they line up, and why making this deal and giving us Fano Drive will save $2 to $4 million in site costs of not having to build those bridges. And if you ever see Mark Tisdale on the street, just congratulate him. I proposed the deal. Mark did all the smart work. And we had it from the time we proposed it to the time we signed an MOU was 2 days. And that is a huge impact on this project. What's required now is we have to go back to MSBA because it's a major modification and give them the new plan and get their approval. They won't do that until town meeting approves the land swap. So that's the Fano Drive issue. The second issue raised by the writer is correct, the exorbitant land costs. Fano Drive changes all of that. Having Fano Drive changes that dramatically. And the second year was a 20-year versus 30-year bond. If we go back to the report written by the independent working group led by John Anzavino, it's not 20 versus 30. It says something between 20 and 30. And that's why we're here tonight. The bond council is giving us 3 options: a 20-year, a 25-year, and a 30-year. In terms of the other rhetoric about misleading or they're hiding something, The project costs are going down because of good management of this project. That's all great news. To add to that, we're going to get approximately $1.5 million left over from the high school project. Remember, you can't pay a bond off, but that project didn't use all the money. There's $1.5 million left over. And the only way the $1.5 million can be used is on a like project where there is excluded debt, like this project. So there'll be another $1.5 million going towards this project, allowing us to reduce the borrowing amount, the amount we eventually borrow. And with a town meeting vote, that money's available immediately. The next piece is there's the final payment from MSBA that's 4 years overdue. And I've been very active, along with Biz taking the lead, and pushing the bureaucracy very hard. And it's likely we'll have this money sometime, not likely, sometime this year, no later than February. That's another $2.5 million that's going to result in less borrowing. So the $65.2 million that is our portion of this construction project, we can name an estimate of $7 to $8 million that we're saving already that we won't have to borrow. But these numbers are based upon the 65.2, because that's what town meeting voted, that's what MSBA approved, but as you see from the high school, it doesn't mean it has to be spent. So it's those savings are reviewed, plus there's a major contingency plan in that project. So I think it's fair to say that unless the president's tariffs make the cost of materials skyrocket in the next year, we are pretty comfortable that the price of this project is on its way down and in a very significant way. And I'll take all questions after we get through these things. The second post that I'd like to address before we get into the numbers reads as follows. Stoughton tax hike alert in big letters. They are coming for more of your money again. This Thursday, 8/28, in the town's Great Hall, 3rd floor at 7 p.m., there's a public information session scheduled to discuss shortening the debt term to pay off the massive school budget. No, we're not here to suggest to you that you shorten the term. We're here to give you information, and then you'll give us input. We have no preference. I'm not even a taxpayer. So it doesn't matter to me. It matters to me what you feel and what you think and what guidance you want to give your select board. Next paragraph says, if the select board decides to accept a shorter term, parentheses, from 30 years down to 20 years, your property tax burden will go up over 20% every year. False. Misinformation. The added cost of using a 20-year term can, in all caps, and should be absorbed into the existing budget. That issue has been litigated, asked, answered by a town meeting vote, and by the citizens of this town in a ballot question. Not added to the cost of this debt override. During the revote campaign, we were promised a 30-year term in order to sell us, all caps, the project based on a lower property tax charge per year. The cost of a 30-year term costs approximately $18 million in interest for the extra 10-year term. Right about the concept, wrong about the number. The 30-year note will cost you $24 million more, not 18. The Stoughton No New Tax Hike organization fought very hard to avoid this dilemma. There is no dilemma. We are right where we are and asking for your input on what you want the next step on this project to be. We promise transparency. We have given it through the independent working group. And just for the record, if you look at page 8, section D of the independent working group report, they never said it's either a 20-year or a 30-year. It said, and I quote, the loan would extend over a 20 to 30-year borrowing period, quote unquote. So to say that the debate is an adversarial one of 20 to 30, I don't know why some have this need to create division by using misinformation. But what I'm here to do is give you the accurate information, and if you catch me being wrong, I can assure you it's a mistake, and it's not a strategy to mislead you. I haven't been caught yet, but I will be. I'm just not that bright. I will get caught in a mistake, but I went back and checked that. Page 8, Section D, never said either or. You got it. Thank you. Last sentence here. Stoughton No More Tax Hike Organization fought very hard to avoid this dilemma, and now we are facing a day of reckoning this week in the subsequent selectmen vote. Please join us this Thursday at Town Hall, Great Hall. So I just felt compelled to clear up that information so that people are clear-eyed of the decision we're asking you to give the board input on. You pay their big salaries. You pay my big salary. You have a voice. You have a horse in this race. And as you're going to see as Biz takes over now, in a minute, there is a major difference, $24 million additional interest between 20 years and 30 years. And the cost per taxpayer per month to save that $24 million is under $5 a month. And I'm going to show you that in the final chart. Again, it doesn't matter to me which one you choose. But you have to decide where your values are and what's important to you. I'm going to answer questions right at the end. All right? I just want to go through a summary, and then I'm going to turn it over to Biz. How did we get here? On November 18th, town meeting voted 111 to 34. 76.5% in the affirmative to bring this article to the ballot box. February 3rd, 25, special town meeting was held in response to the November 18th, 24 town meeting, which authorized the select board to present the school building project to town meeting. The article was passed, which authorized the select board to put on the annual election ballot question number 1, which was to have the electorate of the town of Stoughton decide outcome and funding mechanisms of the elementary school project. The vote was 110 yes, 28 no, a 79.7% message to the Board of Selectmen. On April 8th, question 1 was voted by the residents of Stoughton in the affirmative to move forward with the project along with funding via debt exclusion. A total of 5,242 residents cast their vote, 2,824 yes, 2,824 yes, 2,208 no, 53.9 in the affirmative. Tonight, after Biz goes through it, we're going to take your Q&A. What we are going to do is answer any question you have on bond council's 3 recommendations or 3 alternatives they're giving you. What we're not going to do is go down a rabbit hole and address misinformation or issues which have already been settled by town meeting or by our electorate. Is that fair? We're not going to revisit settled, voted issues by the town meeting leaders and by the citizens of the town of Stoughton. We're here to make sure you walk out with a very simple chart that shows the 3 options, and that you share that chart with your friends and family and send a very clear message, hopefully in a civil manner, to the select board as to what your preference is. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Biz, and we will take questions after she's done. As many questions as you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coulter.
In preparation for tonight's meeting, we went through all of the information from bond council that went back from April 24. We examined the report of the school committee building group, and we came up with the data that we felt was important to all of you, which on the screen and here in your hands, everybody should have received a chart of our borrowing and what we need to do on the borrowing.
Excuse me, Chris?
Yes, sir.
If anybody didn't get that chart and wants one, we can print more. Did anybody not get that chart? Okay, thank you. Excuse me, Chris.
Yep, no problem. So on the chart, the first summary is 20 years at 4%. Everything here is estimated because we don't know what the interest rate will be when we actually go to borrow. And this is pretty standard at this point in time, that this is the projected interest rates. Our principal will not change, but our interest will. So on this, we did a little bit of an analysis looking at what the comparisons were year to year. If the townspeople go with a 20-year 4% interest rate, then the payments over the course of 10 years would be $96,267,572. The second option that's being presented, and this is from our bond council, is 25 years at 4.25%. The longer you go out on your borrowing, the higher your interest goes. So that would give us a $107,591,791. And the big difference here is based on the interest for the term of the note and the increased interest cost. So that interest is $42,364,318. And the final option is the 30-year option at a 4.5% interest. And with that option, it goes out 30 years, and the interest is at $55,429,086. So the longer you take the note for, just like your own, it's going to cost you more in interest, and then the amount of time that you're paying it back, it goes longer. So with this, we also did another analysis. Does anybody have any questions on this particular part of the chart? Okay. So the next part we looked at was, what is it going to cost on average for a homeowner, taxpayer? So we took the total cost of the project for each year, and we averaged out the values. So what we have is that just on a principal and interest cost, the amount increase in taxation for the 20-year note would be the highest value, which goes to the year of 2029. 2035 is the highest year of the note for the 20-year note. That'd be 338.29. Yeah.
Based on $500,000.
Yeah, based on the average of 500,000, which is clear in the beginning sheet. And then on the 25-year note, the highest payment would be in 2032, which is 302.65. And then on the last one, 2029 would be the highest payment, which would be 282.83. The most important thing to also recognize here is all of the first payments will start in 2027 for principal and interest. The final payment for the 20-year note is 2048. The final payment on the 25-year note is 2053, and the 30-year note is 2058. So by going out more years, you're paying more on interest and prolonging the debt payments. So with this, if we took just the amount of interest being paid, or the principal and interest being paid over the concept of the total note, the 20-year, 25-year, et cetera, the taxpayers on average $500,000 note over the course of 20 years would be paying $681831. And on a 25-year note, they'd be paying $762036. And on the 30-year note, they'd be paying $854570. How this breaks down, a yearly estimated increase on each one of the $500,000 value homes, 20-year is $340.92. 25-year is $304.81. 30-year is $284.86. But with this, you're paying a lot longer. So the whole premise of this is to give you the information that we felt you would need. And then in the summary aspect of it, does anybody have any questions on that before I go anyplace else? Yes. I can. No problem. Yep, the summary chart will have, okay, you're welcome. Yes.
So my question is when you say the
Uh,
Trish, last person to read, please.
Hi, Lisa Lyons, Precinct 2. So when you give these annual costs, and it's based on a $500,000 assessed value at a time, what is happening when, year by year, the assessed values increase?
We can only project this on the 500,000 assessed value. Every year, people's homes will either go up or go down based on, what's going on in the community. Did you build an addition? Did you not build an addition? Did the 3-year average of home sales go up or down in Stoughton? So these are all estimated, and it's not possible to give an exact figure, but we are giving the best information that we can. One moment.
What about the other schools that have to be modified? Will that be added to the other ones?
At this point in time, the other schools, to my best knowledge, will be addressed by Mr. Coulter.
That's really a superintendent discussion. That's not here for tonight. This is purely on the investment on this elementary school, on the new South School, which will close 2 old schools. The total tax will change because this will be added to it. But that's not what we're here for tonight. We're looking purely at this project, okay? I'll do that.
Oh, he can go. He's only asking.
Oh,
In 10 years, when the value of your home does increase, will the tax payment increase due to the assessed value?
Let me take this one. You have a tax rate times the value of your home. If you have a $350,000 home, then obviously your cost is going to be greater than that, less than that. If you have a $750,000 home, your cost is going to be greater than that. So that you can do your calculations, we're providing to you the tax rate that you'll multiply. As Biz said, if your house goes up, this is not a flat rate. As your house goes up, your assessment for this debt override will go up. These are just projections. If your house goes down, they will go down. And where that market goes, I'm not sure. Thank you, sir. Ian.
Hi. Arnie Feinberg, Precinct 6. So not only, we're going to be paying whatever is in this column. They choose whatever year term they're getting. That's going to be in addition to the Proposition 2.5. So if we get a $400 bill, that's $400 on top of whatever you got here.
This is a debt exclusion that stands alone, and you pay it on your tax bill as a standalone debt exclusion. This is just for the new school. We want to be very clear. Whatever your tax bill now is for past projects, that's not going to change. It is what it is. This is for the school project. It's incremental. Let's look at it that way.
I meant that this year we're going to get an additional 2.5% on top of the debt exclusion.
Under Prop 2.5, correct.
That is correct. So if we paid $400 the last time, whatever the increase is, it's $400 plus this.
That's correct. Sure. Hold on and see if anybody needs it over there. Other questions, folks? Hey, TJ. Other questions? I hope that my version, which is the dumbed-down version, is clear. It's the same as Biz's version, but I just tried to take those key variables and show you what those numbers are, and then I had Biz check it to make sure I'm not wrong. Go right ahead.
John.
Well, I thought he was looking
Oh, I'm
at-
sorry, John.
John Inzovino, Precinct 4. Just to try and clarify that,
Thanks.
if you borrowed a certain amount of money, and the town is going to be responsible to pay so much back every year, So if you're being assessed based on your value and you're collecting more money, your payment's not going to change. And I think that's where some of the confusion might come in, is if you're pulling in more and more money based on the assessed values, what's that do to your payments? You know, how does that affect with you paying as opposed to setting a flat rate for the full length of the loan?
As you said, John, it's not a flat rate. It's the variable, your assessed value. You're not borrowing at a variable rate. The rates are on top of it.
Let me
At the time we borrow.
try and say it again.
Correct.
If I take out a mortgage for X amount of dollars at a certain rate, I pay that much every month. The town is going to take out a bond for X amount of dollars, and actually, you should make it clear, you're taking out two separate bonds for over the 20 years. You're not just doing one, you're going to split it. Right, for all three of them. So if you take out a bond that's at a set rate for a set amount of money, you owe a fixed amount every year. So if you're collecting based on assessed values, and obviously the values go up more or less, they're going to go up every year. So if you're collecting that much more every year, and you're set to only pay so much, so where's the extra money going? No, you understand what I'm saying. So, and that's what people look at. If you have a mortgage, you're paying X amount until the note's gone. The town's borrowing, they're going to be paying so much a month until the bond's paid off. So if you're pulling in more because you're doing it based on assessed value, how does that change anything?
What you're saying is our commitment to the bank or to the bondholders is. But if this is what John's saying, I agree with him. Our obligation under the bonds is going to be fixed. It's different every year because of the payment schedule, but our payment is not going to change other than what's in that schedule in front of you. It'll change that way, okay? If we have a great economic base in the property values are skyrocketing, John's right. From a formula standpoint, your payments would go up. Having said that, if we have a strong economic base, your tax rates will go down, like they have 4 out of the past 5 years. Your tax rates have been reduced. So we can't predict what that number is going to be. John's right, though. We know exactly what our obligation is going to be the day we sign the bonds. Thanks, John. I appreciate it.
Back there?
Thank you. Bob Kirby in Precinct 6. You said this chart is based on the 65 million, and we have the potential to spend less. When you made the analogy to the high school, you said there was $1.5 million that wasn't spent, but the bond was fixed and it couldn't be paid off early. So that money is kind of rolled over into this project. When will the determination be made as to how much we actually will be required to put into a bond? Or will, because of the timeliness of the contracts and so forth, we still end up with a $65 million bond, and whatever cost savings we have won't manifest in terms of a tax reduction, but will just end up being, like the high school, rolled over into the next project? How do you foresee that coming into play in a tangible way? Will the potential savings and all those things you enumerated in your opening statement, will they actually reduce the amount we borrow effectively, or will it end up rolled over into the next project?
It will affect the borrowing as in a reduction. At the town meeting that we did in May, we took $1 million from the high school project, transferred that into this project, and then we took $451,000 from the West School's window project, which was closed, and that also had a cash balance. We transferred that into this project, and effectively that's going to reduce our borrowing. But as we continue to go through the project and we get other funding, for instance, the MSBA funds, and we have project reduction, we only borrow what we need. We never borrow above what we need. That's why in the last year of the project, you've got the first phase of borrowing at 25 million and the second phase of borrowing at 40 million, so that you aren't borrowing everything at once, creating an undue burden on the taxpayers at this point in time. So right now, if we look at what we've already done, we have a 65 million, well, we just shaved off 1.4. So now we're looking at 64.5, or whatever it is, 63.5. 63.5. And then if we get in that projected $2 million from MSBA, the town meeting is going to vote. How are we going to spend that money? The recommendation when that money comes in is to take that and allocate it to this new school project and again, reduce the borrowing. And the budgets are very clear in the system that this is what we anticipate to borrow, this is what we're getting from MSBA, this is what funding is coming from other closed projects or other financial avenues that we have available.
And then we'll go to Dave. And Ian, did you have a question? Okay, let me just add to that something I learned in this process. Once you get approved for the borrowing of $65.2 million, whether you use it on this school or not, you owe them $65.2 million. You can't write it down
If we borrow the total amount of 65, we're obligated
to pay 65.2.
If we do not take the whole 65.2, we're only obligated to what we borrow. That's it.
That's correct. So here's the challenge. You take the first 25, you know you're going to use all of that. The remaining 45 or whatever it is, it's a guess as to what the end. We still owe the money. Once we sign the papers, we still owe the money. But as we keep driving the prices down, assuming there's no tariff impact on this project, as we keep driving the amount of money we need down for the project to be completed, if at the end there's a surplus, then that is still your money, and the only way that surplus can be spent is on a like project that is debt excluded and approved by town meeting. It doesn't go in the piggy bank for the town. Yes. Go right ahead.
Jim Flynn, Precinct 2. So if you borrow the first 25 million, and then the numbers that you came in, I think you said 9 million. So we could potentially not borrow 40, but 31 million. I think that's what she's saying.
Let me see if she can clarify that. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think that's correct.
That is absolutely correct.
I thought once, forgive us for a second.
If you do the 40, yes, you owe the 40.
Right.
But if you get that reduction that you mentioned,
So let me ask
then
Biz,
that built into that money going down.
let me ask Biz a question. At the very beginning of the application process, are we borrowing 65 or are we only committed to the 25? Here, you have this. Germs.
We are committed to the initial 25.
Correct.
And then the next borrowing is not scheduled till July of 27.
Great.
And when we get to the next
right.
borrowing, we don't have to borrow. We don't. That's the role.
That's great. And we'll know a lot. Forgive me, I was wrong then. So at that point in time, it'll come in February. So we'll have a clear-eyed view. We'll have a clear-eyed view of what the remaining cost to complete is. I'm going to give this to TJ now. The complete, and can have a better estimate as what that cost to complete is. And now listen, if we come up short, we got a different problem.
I just wanted to add, we will sign a guaranteed maximum price agreement with the construction manager in September 2026.
Excuse me,
Yes.
I had a question. It's kind of a question, but I think historically what we had was a high school in which we upfront locked in borrowing on a much larger number than the net cost at the end of the project. In much of the 9 million in hearing at the open, which is great news, was front-end knowledge of a project, not the end of the project. There's contingency, like 10%, 15%, whatever that number is. These things aren't known until you close the books on the project. The question is will we know the number at the closing, and will that net down the number so that we're not over borrowing against it? Can we, like the previous speaker said, I'm Dave by Precinct 6, by the way, but will we know it so that we don't have to have, so we could zero out the bond and not have to roll anything over like the previous speaker was talking about, the open of that line of questioning?
So with the success of the high school project, the amount of borrowing that was authorized was a large project. However, the town did not borrow $5,023,000. And at the past May town meeting, we rescinded that borrowing. So that shows good project management and being able to reduce the cost from what was originally estimated. And that's the goal on this project as well, good project management to keep us in line, other funding sources that we can vote in that are going to reduce the debt.
So we'll know the final cost before we commit to the final bond amount.
The bond goes out immediately. It does not wait, it goes out. What we do is it's the final borrowing. The initial borrowing is 25, the second borrowing is estimated to be 40. When we go for that second bonding, we'll be looking at where's the project, how's the cost, and we're not going to take $5 million if we didn't spend $5 million. That's how this works. We just don't go out and borrow $65 million because this says we need 65. We borrow in increments, and that gives us better financial processes. I'm sorry, I've got somebody right here first, and then we'll be to you.
Worst case scenario, when I'm assuming that people sell their homes, 10% of the people move out and 10% don't come back, so our tax base decreases by 10%. Because I see homes for sale.
There are plenty of worst-case scenarios in this type of situation. However, Stoughton is a wonderful community, and some people may want to move out, and other people are going to want to move in. And even though there might be properties on the market right now, it doesn't mean that we're going to lose a large tax base. And we also have a large industrial tax base as well, which helps the community as a whole. I'm sorry, I've got that man back there first. Thank you. Push the button. Thank you. Red's off. Green's on.
Folks, I've lived in this town for 52 years. I bought my house for $37,500. It's assessed, it's $750. A lot of money. The property in Stoughton right now is sky high. If you read the Globe, the financial, 3 or 4 houses went for, there's a house that went 1.8 million, 1.4 million, 1.2. That's out of the Globe. The 1.8, I know the person that sold the house. So Stoughton is right up there with others. Another thing I'd like to bring out, we talk about money. Stoughton right now is probably one of the wealthiest towns in the South Shore. That's a fact. Mr. Town Manager, am I right or wrong? We're in the very top. That's right. I just hope we don't spend it. It's there. And probably going to get better because of 3 buildings that are going up, these monstrosities that we're building. And I hope we take care of the streets. As far as no one's brought up, and I know we're pushing for lower interest rates. You know the interest rates are going to come down. It means it will come down. I bet you before we borrow this, it'll come down 2 times. I don't know how much, but it will come down.
Just remember, that's Bob's forecast. If inflation, we learned in economics in grad school, when inflation goes up, interest rates go up. Inflation is ticking up. So we're going to avoid, Bob is entitled to that opinion, but I can't give you that opinion.
But I'm giving you Bob's opinion.
Kim Biz, and I appreciate that.
The bottom line here is We need a school. And how we get it is important. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
There you go. Next question.
I just had a question about the bond rate. Is that, once it's set, is that set for the 30 years, or does it have to be renegotiated every 5 or 7 years?
It is set for the term of the note. However, in municipal bonding, you have an opportunity to do refunding on a note. Refunding on a note generally comes about 10 years into that note. And you only refund if it's beneficial. If it's not beneficial, you leave it as it is. But that's part of the borrowing process that we examine all the time moving forward.
Has anyone yet not asked a question? Please.
I've got right here. Nope, this one I have.
Sorry, maybe you're second.
Yep, she's first. I already gave him mics. You're first. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Dawn Dino, Precinct 4. I have maybe a dumb question. I just want to completely understand it. So if we're going to borrow the first 25 million, are we going to vote to or see whether we want to do 20, 25 year or 30 year on that 25, and then on the second, are we going to decide if it's going to be a 20, 25, or a 30-year note? It's a one-time thing, so.
It's a one-time thing because that's how we voted this project. We didn't vote half a project, we voted a whole project. So when we go out to borrow, our borrowing goes out to bid. And that has to be all inclusive of what this particular project will be. And we can't split it between some here, some there, because the way town meeting voted. And it wouldn't be beneficial in the end to vote it separately because you have bond costs and preliminary interest. There's all kinds of costs involved in this. So that's why you put it together and you get a better premium that comes back to the town to offset the costs of the bonds.
Okay, and then the second part, and this is maybe the dumbest thing, but when you have a mortgage, and if I pay $2,000 on my mortgage normally, and I decide I'm going to pay $4,000, I pay that off, obviously, my house a lot. You can't do that in a bond, I understand that, but can you go back and you said refinance or look at that so that it kind of offsets the taxpayers?
That is a 10-year out, and it's a refunding of bonds. And it's another borrowing process that we go through, but it's all dependent on how far we are into the bond, what are the interest rates, and what is the offer coming from the person who currently owns our bonds.
Thank you.
The first opportunity is 10 years in.
Okay,
So,
thank
Biz,
you.
I have a question for you that I've heard from others. Can you talk about... The question I've heard from others that Biz is best to answer, why aren't we using bands in the short term as opposed to locking into long-term notes?
So with the band, which is called it's called a bond anticipation note, there's different revenue sources that you can go through with a municipality. With a bond anticipation note, we could go out and ban $25 million, which is temporary borrowing, but the amount of interest on that temporary borrowing is gigantic, and it's not cost effective. So that's one of the things in a municipality that we don't do. Our job is to make it as reasonably affordable for the community, and not because it's good. You know, we aren't Wellesley, we aren't Dover, we have certain limits to our income, so. Yep. And
Just to add to that answer a bit, a lot of communities, the one I live in, doesn't have the bond capacity to borrow the whole amount. So they take out short-term borrowing at a much higher interest rate. It sounds like an equity loan in your house, right? Short-term borrowing as they clean up their balance sheet, hoping that when the project's done, they'll get a loan at the lower interest rate for the whole thing. Bands, which is short-term borrowing, are very expensive and very dangerous. And the towns that do it are the towns, in many cases, with a weak balance sheet. Stoughton does not have a weak balance sheet.
Well, no. What we do ban, just to be clear, is items that are short money. So if we have a $100,000 note, a $300,000 note, we will ban them for a period of time, and the interest isn't that high. And then when we have a larger borrowing, we bond all those together, so we get a better price.
That makes sense.
So the next question was Lisa. Oh,
Yeah, hi, Ann Spector, Precinct 3. Hi. This is a stupid question, but if Stoughton is doing so well financially, why then do we have to take out bonds for $65 million? Can't some of that great income that's coming in lessen that amount so it's less on the taxpayers?
well, quite simply, just looking at the data, if you take one sample year and add that up, it'd be $5 million that would have to go through the town's budget. Now, to do that, the question would be, are you going to go for an override? A regular override is permanent. A debt exclusion is temporary, short period of time for a specific project. So that's why you go for these larger projects to be debt excluded. And, you know, as Mr. Calton mentioned, this was voted by ballot vote back in April by the majority of people on how they wanted to do this.
Can I address that?
Sure.
Just to elaborate a bit on that, it was recommended that all or a portion of this be done through the budget. Let me tell you what that means. Annually, we have, except for the last year, $5 million in surplus cash. We call it free cash. If we did it through the budget, all of that $5 million would be used to service this principal and interest. What? It's not true? Who said that? According to you?
No, according
Can we move
to-
on, and I'll get back to your question.
Okay.
$5 million in free cash. What that means is we've got $5 million left over after our operating budget has been balanced. That's indisputable. It's indisputable. We'll see what the opposing argument is, but that's indisputable. What do we do with that free cash? We use it to fund our capital budget in most cases, where we pay cash for all equipment, facility upgrades, and so forth, as opposed to short-term band borrowing at much higher interest rates. Now, last year, we had $12 million in free cash. It's a one-off. $13 million in free cash. Why? Because when Biz and I came here, and she started to scrub the books in a forensic way, we found articles from town meetings going back 20 years that were never closed out. And by closing them out, that money goes to free cash. Cannot be distributed without going through the operating of the capital budget, which is only approved by town meeting. We don't get to take a free ride or a vacation, like some have suggested. Of course, now in the last 3 years, we've built up our reserve accounts, a reserve for fire apparatus, a reserve for building maintenance and equipment, a capital equipment, and a stabilization fund to I think $20 million, up from $2 million. That's right, it's not counting stabilization. That was up from $2 million. So we're not spending the free cash, we're putting it aside because that's what the taxpayers told us. We face the potential for very difficult headwinds. The economy of this country is so uncertain. Interest rates in the country are so uncertain. Because of supply chain problems, the cost of the country and labor costs are so uncertain. You've got towns to your east, west, north, and south that just turned down overrides, operating budgets, just to balance their books. Forget about free cash. They can't even get to break even. So when we get to $5 million in free cash, it means we have $5 million in surplus cash above and beyond what we budgeted for our expense operating budget. And then we use that for capital plans to avoid spending money at very high interest rates. This 4% you can't get when you buy a $2.4 million ladder truck. So we saved a quarter of that already. It'll be another quarter of that this year. We'll have it paid off before we take delivery of the truck. And because we've got the cash, we'll get likely a 10% discount for paying cash, which is another $240,000 we put back in our bank account. As you all know, money makes money. So we're not going to spend those bank accounts on our operating budget. We may draw them down for capital budgets because we want to avoid borrowing, but then we will quickly replenish it as fast as we draw it down. That's what I'm hearing the public telling me you want us to do with your money. And as a matter of policy by the board, they heard you loud and clear. We want financial stability. This town can take on those headwinds. We've got 19 fewer employees, not counting the schools, just in town government, than we had 3 years ago. We didn't lay anybody off, but when people retired, we consolidated departments. We used technology to do the same with less. And this year, we're forecasting the town side, not the school side, 2.5% increase. There's no town in this area that's forecasting 2.5% growth in their expense budget. We're going to be lower than Prop 2.5 on the municipal side. Now, on the school side, and there's nothing the superintendent can do about it, DESE, the Department of Education, sets their base budget. It's called Foundation. And Foundation this year is going to be over 4%. We have no control over that, none. But that's why the municipal side is going to take a very conservative approach to this year's budget. And our tax rate, which has gone down, I believe, 3 out of 4 years, if not 4 out of 5, will continue to drop. If I may finish, please. And then we're going to let other people who haven't spoken ask questions. Is there anyone else that has not asked a question? Why don't you let me facilitate the meeting? Thank you very much. Go right ahead.
When are you taking out? Is it in September? When you apply for the bond, what month are you applying for it? Is it this
Right now, we're in the process of our bonding, so we will need the decision from the select board as to what bond they're going to do. We plan on taking the first fund drawdown. It's going to be September, but it might be October. And so the first payment starts in 2027. For each one of these notes, each period, 20, 25, or 30, the payback starts in 2027.
I'm more curious about the interest rate, honestly.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Did you have a follow-up to that?
I just have a question more about the interest rate. If this 4%, is this definite? Or is this like when you take out the bond? So it's anticipated? So that's why I was kind of curious when the bond's coming out.
Everything we have here is estimated, and the reason it's estimated is because of the market.
Right.
So if the interest rate, the Fed goes out and says, oh, we're in catastrophe, we're raising the interest to 6%, or they come back and say, yay, everything's wonderful, the interest is going to go down to 3%. So those type of things that happen at the federal level impact us here. And also when we go out to bid, the larger you have for a contract going out, the better interest rate you will essentially get from those who bid. We don't walk into a bank. There's a large process involved when bidding for municipal bonds.
Sure.
Another point I'd like to make about that on the interest rate itself, it's driving Biz crazy, and she's right and I'm wrong, but I'm trying to drag my feet on the first $25 million. Not because I think the economic market is going to drive interest rates down. The Fed wants to hold them steady. The president wants to drive them down. But at the end of the day, inflation, if it ticks down, interest rates go down. If it ticks up, interest rates go up. My real interest is our bond rating. We are in such a different financial condition today than we were a couple of years ago that we're applying for, and it will be considered for, a bond adjustment, a bond rating adjustment. The bond rating adjustment is based upon their assessment of risk in lending us money. Because our balance sheet has become so strong, they view the risk as much lower. If we get a downgrade in an upgrade in our bond rating and a downgrade in our risk profile, we could get a quarter, a half, a point off, which, as you can see in that analysis, is tens of millions of dollars. So we're trying to play the market a bit without being piggish about it. Biz can only wait so long before she signs the document to borrow the first $25 million. Next question. Who hasn't asked a question? Go right ahead. I'll bring this over to you. There you go.
Hi there, Cheryl, Precinct 4. I just want to say, like, a few times I've heard you say that forecasted interest rates, well, first of all, are these bond rates we know are preliminary? Are these rates as of today or this week?
These are the projected rates when this analysis is being done. These are currently standard best estimate rates from our financial advisor and bond counsel. We will not have a definitive rate until we enter into the loan process, and this is where the bids come into play. So let's say J.P. Morgan Chase, they're going to bid on our notes. They're going to offer us a 4.5% interest, yet Santander Bank, and I'm making these up, Santander Bank's going to offer us a 4% interest rate, and Eastern Bank's going to offer us a 3.5% rate. So it's very variable, and that's why all these things are estimated.
Understood, but several times Tom has said the economy, interest rates could go up. You feel, Bob had mentioned, you know, we're doing well, but you're like, that's Bob's opinion. Well, it's also the opinion of the Fed. Powell is planning on lowering interest rates. So I'm not going to fight with you. That's good news.
Sure it is.
But
I hope that
you're
happens.
being right, and you're being a little bit down on what the rates are going to do. Because you're saying they could go up, they will, you know, whatever. But most likely,
don't know.
no one knows. But you have, just like we're doing here, this is forecasted rates,
Right.
and you plan and forecast appropriately. So
Let me be
the
clear
rates,
about
yep.
what I've said, and then I'll go back to you, if I may. There are so many variables that go into the interest rate. We've talked about that. There's the risk they assess to us. I think that's a plus. There's also the markets. We've got a fight right now at the federal government level between the administration and the Fed. The administration wants to drop interest rates down to 2%. The Fed is saying, no, we can't do that, we won't do that, because that will fuel inflation to skyrocket. None of us know what Powell or President Trump are going to do. So anybody who says, even our advisor, what this is going to be, it just doesn't know. It all depends on so many factors. As we sit here today, India has to start today paying a 50% tax on all imports to the United States. That's going to drive up the cost of clothing, which will drive up the cost of inflation. As of this week, the Russian oil, which is sold to China and sold to India, is going to face a major tariff increase. That's going to drive up, that's going to dry up the world market, because it's going to restrict what's coming out of Russia in that cheap oil, which is going to drive up numbers at the pump. Now, none of that may happen. We're only listening to the administration as to what they're planning and what the Fed is saying. Because the Fed, Jerome Powell, won't do what the administration is saying, they're firing one of the governors of the administration.
Is that Cook?
I believe so.
Cook, she wasn't fired because of that.
I don't know why.
Okay, well, you're using all these examples. What I'm saying is what came out of Powell's statements was that most likely in September, rates are going to lower, and there's going to be 4 rate decreases.
He did say that.
He did. So I'm just
And
saying
I'm
you keep
praying for
saying
that.
that's going to go up, and yes, this is all forecasted. You've said that. I get it. But what I'm saying is you've said it several times, and all the tariffs, and it only benefits us. Correct me if I'm wrong. All these rates, if forecasted rates go down, correct?
Absolutely. I don't think I've said anything different. We want the rates to go down. It'll drop the cost of borrowing. I completely pray for that. But there are factors that we can't close our eyes to that are geo-economical, that we don't control, our advisors don't control, the banks don't control, and that's why we keep saying these are our financial advisors' best estimates as to what they know today. I don't know if I'm not being clear, I'll try harder, but we don't know. We only know the factors that will go into that outcome. Is there anybody else who has not had a question? Then we'll go back to round two.
I was just wondering, if the town borrows less money, will the state kick in less money, or is that the amount the state kicked in, is that fixed?
Great question. The state contribution is fixed. It's under contract. It will not change. Regardless of how much money we save, that contribution won't change. One more question from someone who has not raised a question, then we'll go back for round two. Didn't ask a question? Anybody? Anybody that didn't ask a question? Here you go. There you go.
So, as a taxpayer of this town, and we're only talking about how this can benefit or ruin a lot of families in this town. So I don't like the way that there's nothing concrete, that you don't give us concrete answer and pointing finger and talk about politics or market or whatever it is. So we need to make sure that we get concrete answer what the interest will be and what's the proof we can get once you borrowed. Can we review the statements and can we review the proof that what actually in fact happened?
We have no proof. We've been talking about that for almost 15 minutes now. We have no proof. As if you were buying a home and you're applying for a mortgage. Until you get a commitment and draw down the money, you have no proof either. What we're talking about are the various factors that will go into the ultimate answer. In any investment, you don't know the cost until you borrow the money. Who had a question?
I don't have a question, but I think that we are getting really hung up on exact numbers that we can't know. And I think if we sort of shift to looking at, we can look at things like if we take out a loan for a longer amount of time, the interest rate will be different. We don't know exactly what that will be, but we can see that it will be different. So, or we can look at these and we can go, oh, that's about, I did the math, that's about $11,324,219 more. Now, is it going to be $220 more? Who knows? But you can look at those and get the ratios. Is it going to be a tiny bit more? Is it going to be like twice as much? And so these are not the exact numbers, which we can't know until it actually goes into that process. But it does give us a good sense of, is this a tiny bit more or a lot more? Which is kind of hard to gauge when you're looking at millions of dollars, which most of us don't think in those terms, and it all sounds like a lot more. But like taking a step back away from the exact numbers and thinking of it more like a bar graph or a pie chart, that sort of imagery might be helpful.
Very good. Thank you.
I didn't identify myself because it's not town meeting, but I'm Carmel from Precinct 5.
They all know you. Two people who have not asked questions here and here. There you go, Lauren.
So I think there's a lot of concern about definitive answers with money and what it's going to cost. So just say when the Fed decides in September whether they're going up or down with the rates, when is the decision going to be made with you guys?
When we go to bond, when we go to borrow the money, they will set a rate. And as Biz said, the opportunity will go out to bid and the various lenders will bid against each other. Is that September? Yeah, it's September.
It goes through the bid process. Multiple organizations put in the bid process. We're in the process of doing that right now. We've got many, many documents that we have to prepare. And when we complete the preparation, it's probably about 100 pages. Those pages go to our bond counsel and our financial advisors. They prepare the package to go out to those who would like to bid on our borrowing. And then when it goes out to bid on our borrowing, then they will come back and say, these are your rates, this is who bid on your project, this is the premium they're willing to pay you. So this is what you will be getting. This is our recommendation of what happens. And then it gets reviewed by the select board and by the financial teams, and we say, go ahead. This will be. Right now, we're in the process. We've got a lot of work to do, and unfortunately, we want to make sure everybody's informed, but this has delayed our process. So it's going to be a few more weeks before we can get our final packets out. Second question on that question?
So the Fed lowers the rate, just say, and you really like the rate, is there a way for you to push it up and encourage? No?
Nope, this goes straight into bid by outside parties. So I'd like to move on to the next question. Ms. Lyons? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Jason Dino, Precinct 4. I have two questions. First of all, how much of this money that we're looking for is going to be picked up and covered by the school department?
Not by the school department, by MSBA, which is School Building Authority. They are, at this point in time, funding $47 million of the project, and the town is funding $65 million of the project. All this information was presented by the School Building Independent Committee and also by the team with TJ Recupero and other members at town meeting. All this information was presented and what the values would be.
Okay, my second question is, during Tom's monologue, when he started, he says that we want to listen to the taxpayer.
Correct.
The taxpayers spoke and voted no school. So this administration decides to put it back on a ballot and got what they wanted. So you guys get what you want, but now the taxpayer has the burden of 47 million or more, or 65 million. How's that fair to us?
Well, let me be clear on that. This Board of Selectmen did not unilaterally decide to call for another election. It was voted by town meeting members to call a second election. They instructed the Select Board to call another election. The town meeting members are your legislative body. The board was instructed by a vote of town meeting members.
So if that failed a second time,
there would be no. We wouldn't.
Would you go back in and just do it a third until you got what you wanted?
I'm going to try to be as clear as we can. There were members on the board that supported the school. There were members on the board who didn't. Okay, the board looked to the legislative body, the town meeting members that you duly elect, to guide them on what their action. Only they could have called an election, but they weren't calling an election unless there was a vote by the legislative body. They voted, and the results were, I believe, close to 80-20 to call an election. So I appreciate your feelings. I really do, and I respect them. But it wasn't a unilateral decision of the board. They were instructed by town meeting body.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Lisa? Oh, Peter? There you go. I'll give them. There you go.
Is it Biz? Yes, sir. Yeah, I want to thank you for finding that $13 million.
I'm sorry?
I want to thank you for finding the $13 million. That was laying out there. Staying on?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the free cash?
Yeah. All right. So I want to get back to all this free money that came in from 20-year TIFs that ran out. It's probably $1 million now that come off in 2023. Now, not my words. Out of this town hall, Logistic Park is going to bring in $5 million tax. And that tax is going to go up every year. So it's never going to run. It's going to go up every year just like your home does. That $5 million goes into the budget, but it could have been reallocated to pay for the school, but it didn't. But that money could have done that, and we wouldn't be having all this hassle today. And I'm saying it could be done because Robin Grimm, town manager, when she built the fire station, she took 1/3 of the cost of that fire station out of the town budget, and the other 2/3 on the back of the taxpayers. Now, fast forward with the fire truck, the town manager talked about before, town meeting voted to appropriate $500,000 a year for 4 years to pay that truck off. That's fine. But we could have did the same thing with the school from all this newfound money that all these years we got along very well with. That's all I want to say.
Thank you for your comment.
You're not going
Okay,
to,
thank
we couldn't do that? Yes or no?
It wasn't a question, sir.
Well, I'm asking now as a question.
What was the question?
All this newfound money from Logistic Park, $5 million. The 20-year TIFs, $1 million, that's $6 million all total. And that Logistic Park, the tax is going to go up every year. So in a few years, you're talking more than $5 million. That money could have paid for the school for the next 40 years. So if it was a 30-year mortgage, it would have been $4 million a year. And you could have paid for that, and there'd be $2 million a year left over on this first round. They could have built a state-of-the-art police station.
So
But you decided to go this other route.
So quite simply, we cannot budget anything on hypothetical figures. The logistics park is not complete. That is still in process. So a $5 million value, that's hypothetical.
Well,
And-
didn't we, at town meeting last year, vote that these projects where they're half done, they can charge them full rate?
Yes, we have.
What was that?
We did vote that article. However, money does not exist, period, just like free cash, on new growth until it's certified by the state.
Well-
That will not happen until December. And then that money is potentially available for next fiscal year budgeting, which would be 2028.
All right, but the $1 million from the 20-year TIFs, that come off in 2023, so they have to be already statewide approved.
And we did have excess capacity, which we did not tax the public on. Thank you. Ms. Lyons?
Yeah, so, thank you. So I just want to address a couple of points that I've heard tonight. Can everybody hear? Yeah, but they couldn't hear. Okay. So, to follow up with Mr. Ventresco just said, so I heard your response to him is that you can't count that money until next year, but we had all that free cash that went into a stabilization. So basically, I just want to relate it back. This is where if the select board had put policies in place so that if there is this excess of money found, that a percentage of it could be managed. So for example...
Thank you very much for your comment. However, policies are not on tonight's agenda.
Excuse me. Excuse me. We went way off base on political
Go
stuff.
ahead, Lisa. Go ahead.
Thank you. I mean, this is the type of censorship this
Go ahead,
town.
Lisa, please.
No, but I do have to address this.
We're gonna get out of here soon.
I get cut off when I'm about to make very good points all the time.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
What is your question?
My point is as of last March, I happen to be on Finance Committee, and it was a struggle to get the answer, that our inside debt was down to 2.2%, when the experts, many of them, you like the DOR, the DLS, all of them say the same thing, the GFOA. The point is that it should be between 4 and 6%. The fact that it's down that low instead of managed at a rate that is recommended lends itself to having to go to a debt exclusion. Had that debt money been carved out inside the budget, it would have been not having to go to the public to get the debt exclusion. That's one point.
May I respond to that? Then you go on to the
Yes,
second?
just let me get the...
Then go to the second, because I'll forget it.
Well, that's so I'm trying to remember too, because you went on and on and on. All
So
right,
let me
go ahead.
respond to that.
Go ahead.
Not to personalize it, but you often suggest that there's no policy. The reality is you don't agree with the policy decision that was made. There are many sources for what policy is acceptable. As you just pointed out, DOR will have one, DESI will have another. 300 towns may have a different one. It's not a statutory requirement. This select board made a policy decision. They presented it to town meeting. They don't make the final decision on this. Town meeting does. Your committee, the Finance Committee, voted in support of the policy recommended by the Select Board, and town meeting supported the recommendation of the Select Board and the recommendation of the Finance Committee. There's no one individual in this town that can unilaterally make those important strategic and policy decisions. I start the budget process, and all it is a recommendation. I make recommendations to the board. They come back with their budget guidelines, their policy on how I'm to build the budget for the next year. As you know, we then go into hearings to present the budget. Then we go to FinCom for a month and a half, 2 or 3 nights a week of hearings. And then we go to town meeting with a joint recommendation. As you know, the Finance Committee majority not only passed the budget, supported the policies that town meeting eventually passed. So I'll close, and then you can ask your second question, Lisa. I'll close by saying this is an iterative process with no formal guidelines that all the agencies agree on. At the end of the day, this board has to make a decision that works for this town, and they listen very closely to the taxpayers that we share. But it then has to pass through that screening process with your committee, the Finance Committee, and with town meeting, who eventually makes the final decision. And whatever they decide becomes the law. So it's not a policy on a unilateral board, not even to call a second election. That was a town meeting instruction given to your select board. You have a second question.
I want to agree with you that it is town meeting reps, and that's why it's very important to have town meeting reps that are going to these trainings that are expertly advised to do this.
Understood.
Because it is the select board's job to have these policies in place that protect the taxpayers. And just as you say, you hear from constituents, I do as well, and they're furious because they heard people from not only the Finance Committee, but town meeting reps telling taxpayers, I call them scare tactics, taxpayers that budget cuts would be needed if this school wasn't built. And taxpayers are smart enough to hear the very people, the select board members, as well as our former assessors who came before the board, how much money was actually flowing and is flowing into this town, and that debt exclusion was pushed when it didn't need to be and could be done inside the budget. So I want to address going to Elizabeth Zeletsky.
You can have a third question.
Fine, but this is all related, and
You've
it's
got the floor.
Thank you. She said that it wouldn't be, you can't take the cash now because it's not going to be certified till December, until next year. All that $12 million in free cash could have, by vote, if administration did an article, because we can't, to your point, we can't just say what we want. We actually have to get petitioned articles in, or you as the town manager can put forth an article in front of town meeting and train town meeting reps who are not as expert as you or Elizabeth to explain to them the other option. So you come before us tonight to explain a 20, 25, 30-year debt, but you're not fully explaining how all these areas, revenue, debt, outside debt, all relates, and that we also have many choices to make there, and those can be set by policy, which should be done by the select board. Now, they were given, as my fellow Finance Committee members, a sample financial policy, which would say if we have so much in free cash, how much would go to stabilization. All these policies would forestall, prevent the need for these debt exclusions when we are so wealthy, not only from all the free cash we found, but all the upcoming projects that our assessor and our select board has touted. So
There's a
can
lot-
you acknowledge the frustration of the public that those
You hear
not
from a
exist?
different part of the public than I hear from.
I'm
So,
sure.
no, I'm not going to acknowledge, but I am acknowledging your frustration. But let me be clear. You said that the selectmen made the unilateral policy. They could have done an article. They did do an article. The feedback we were getting from our citizens is don't spend it, save it. We're dealing with very uncertain terms. So they went to town meeting, and I know I'm being a bit redundant, with a recommendation in the form of articles in the warrant to put money in 4 separate stabilization accounts, into 4 separate piggy banks. The town meeting members and the finance committee could have said, that's a dumb idea. They didn't. Your committee, that you're a member of, by a supermajority, supported what the taxpayers that are talking to us are saying, please save the money. Don't be frivolous with your spending. And this board heard those taxpayers. Your finance committee heard those taxpayers. Our town meeting members heard those taxpayers. Now, we don't have I can't say it. No, where everybody's alike. Thank you, monolithic, Dave. We don't have a monolithic citizenry in this town. So it's not a surprise to me that you're getting different feedback than everybody else, or the majority of the Board of Selectmen, the majority of your committee, or the majority of town meeting. And it doesn't mean you're wrong, Lisa. You're getting feedback, and I respect that. Those members and those boards and those committees are getting different feedback. They wanted that money to be put away in savings account so that Stoughton can say, bring on whatever's coming. We will weather the storm. That's what, we're not rich. I don't want to suggest we're rich, but we can weather the storm that Easton, Randolph, Sharon, Brockton have no dream of because of the policies that we adopted to save our money. David.
Thank you, David Lurie, Precinct 6. First of all, I'm 100% on the Hilltop recommendation. 20-year bond is my wish for the Select Board. That is the vote I want them to make. Oh, okay, you'd like that. That is the purpose of the meeting, wasn't it? Oh, yeah, I thought that was the purpose. 20 years, and I don't want any taxpayers to pay the difference from 30. I want the town to commit to 20, and I want the difference paid for by the town's budget, by the town revenue it already gets. And I want to just mention, starting with a meeting we had when I had a front row seat to this project, that it said, hey, does the MSBA care, as long as the town is backing the bond, do they really care whether it's excluded or paid for inside the budget? Do they care? No. The answer came back from the chair of from the building committee. No, they don't. As long as the town is backing the difference, their only concern is that you find a way to finance the difference. They don't care how. So I went to the ballot question, shall the town of Stoughton be allowed to exempt? It doesn't say only, restricting the town to just excluded borrowing. It just says it allows them to use excluded borrowing. It doesn't say anything about doing a split the way the fire station was done. I'm actually not done because I have
No, I'm not going to interrupt.
I'd like to just finish everything. So there's nothing in the ballot question that would stop. And what kind of concerns me is that the town is so good at developing very complex projects, very expensive projects, attracting major developers coming in. And by the way, I don't want anybody touching reserves for this project. Please lock that down. Stabilization and everything else. I'm not in favor of using any of that for this project. But we're so good. We've had the Proposition 2.5 for 46 years. And we're so good at using the capabilities to take money from the citizenry in Stoughton. We don't use all the tools which are available for making it easier for the taxpayers of the town. For example, there was the ability to do an underride. I'm recommending an underride for, first of all, $800,000 to start in order to cover the difference that I was just talking about. If you won't insert the $800,000 from the inside budget. If you refuse to do that, then we'll do an underride and take it that way. And then it nets out this difference. It washes out the difference. But the taxpayers are left alone. The other way is through the policies that were talked about ad nauseum for a long time. Marcia Bohink is a representative from the DOR, Division of Local Services, and she distributes information to all 351 towns, cities, and towns. In this, it says, for responsible use of debt, to define the parameters and provisions governing debt management. And then you go in, and it says, what are the debt limits that they recommend to all the cities and towns? It says, as a control for maintaining consistent capital investment, the town will seek to replace maturing debt obligations with new issuances so that year-to-year debt service is maintained at a target level representing 4 to 6% of general fund revenue. I want everybody to understand, our general fund revenue is projected for, I believe, for FY27, around $141 million. It's probably going to be much more than that because there's so much money pouring in. That's a conservative number. Well, if you look at 4% of that number, that's $5 million worth of inside the budget debt in order to get to the minimum that the state's DOR, which I understand your organization uses as the Bible, the procedures and processes and everything. You look at the DOR, that's like the guiding star that you follow. I've heard words like that used. Mm-hmm. Well, this is the product that they're giving out to all the cities and towns. Mm-hmm. To get to the minimum of 4%, let alone 5%, it would double the number that we're currently paying in debt inside the budget. Double it.
Just wrap it up, Dave, if you don't mind.
I'm trying to say you can go up by over 2 million, probably 3 comfortably, just to get within the proper policy structure that protects people from being hit with debt exclusions. That's their words. It goes on. The town will also seek to fund a greater proportion of its debt obligations from within the base annual tax levy, as opposed to using debt exclusions, with the goal of eventually achieving a consistent level of annual non-excluded debt service, equivalent to 3% of general fund revenues. Their recommendation. This isn't Dave Lurie. I'm pretty sure, Dave thinks he should make the policies and he's not even on a policy board. It's not me.
So
I'm
Dave,
I'm transmitting to
respond,
you
'cause
what's already said by the DOR.
There are people that we're here to discuss these 3 options, and I let you go on because I respect your opinion. So thank you. I just want to respond with 3 quick responses. Number 1, you took a few minutes to describe the democratic process here in the town of Stoughton. You are absolutely welcome to develop a citizen's petition and a petitioned article to bring the underride forth to the town meeting body. And nobody will begrudge you that. You're a very bright individual. You've got a great perspective. Perhaps you could build some real momentum for that. Point 2, town meeting has spoken. We can't go back and revisit and walk all over the will of our legislative body except through a petitioned article or a sponsored article. Point number 3 about the DOR. Remember, I was part of the legislature. I lived by the guidance of the DOR. The DOR, you just said it, recommendations. They provide recommendations. But 351 cities and towns are all in a different financial strata. They don't give mandates because what applies to Avon is not applicable to Stoughton. What applies to Wellesley doesn't apply to Stoughton. So your policymakers take that guidance, and remember, Biz teaches this for the MMA. She's an instructor on these very policies. We take what they offer as guidance, we apply the real numbers of the town of Stoughton, and then the board starts the process, and I'm repeating myself, with a policy recommendation in the form of a budget. It then passes through some significant filters, the Finance Committee, and then the legislative body. So it's not cast in stone. It's a process. Remember, DOR provides guidance. DESE provides instruction. And you apply that guidance based upon the dynamics of your town. But Dave, I think you raised some great points. I thank you for that. Last question. A couple of questions. Yes, go right ahead. There and then there. Here you go. Oh, I'm sorry. You go. I didn't see you. I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. Hi. Is it? Okay, great. So we understand that the only choices that we have to make here are that it's either going to be a 20, 25, or 30-year for the bond, right? Yes. The cost differences have been explained in that document. The variables are what they are. There's a lot that we can't predict at this time. Is that right? Okay. All right, great. So rather than rehashing all of these same points, you mentioned that you wanted to take a poll just to see what the room was at, and I'm just going to ask if we can just do that now.
One person didn't ask a question, so we'll go here. Can we just take the poll? Yeah, and we'll count it up. Is that okay?
Okay, do I get a chance to ask that question? Since, I want to circle back to the point when we were talking about the annual liability toward the note on the bond that the town incurs versus the disparity in the potential projected revenue from the debt exclusion appropriation at the taxpayer level. So, and that fluctuates based on assessments. Assuming that year to year there's going to be some fluctuation and disparity in that number, what metric will be used to optimize the rate to the taxpayer? For example, if we have a recurrent excess capacity in that particular line item of substantial amounts year to year, does that mean we can actually reduce the tax burden to the public in subsequent years? I mean, how is that going to be managed and accounted for to optimize what the taxpayer is actually having to put out of pocket? Because those are just abstract numbers and guesses at this point. Mm-hmm. But we need some kind of metric and accounting method to ensure that we're optimizing the relationship between our annual liability and our annual appropriations.
Thank you for that. Excuse me, we keep talking about future cash and future revenue and future growth like it's real. Unless and until we do the recap and DOR certifies cash, they can make major adjustments either way. We don't have a right, I don't have a right, Biz doesn't have a right to talk about new growth or to talk about free cash. It's only when it is certified. Towns that get out over their skis and talk about that before it's certified, like Brockton did, become very embarrassed when DOR applies their magic potion to that. The second thing, remember the formula. Tax rate times real estate value gives you your tax bill. The tax rate has gone down 3 out of the past 4 years because of our cost-cutting measures. But the wild card are the schools, which I think in Stoughton are one of our greatest assets. We don't get to say to the schools, be more efficient, use more technology, do more with less people, because DESI, unlike the DOR, which gives us guidance, DESI dictates the number for foundation. And under law, we have to comply with that. That's the wild card, because they're 2/3 of the budget, and we have no control over it. The government, Department of Education, tells us what that is. It's a very complicated process. And as we go through the budget process, from September 1st, next week, when we start the budget process for fiscal '27, we start with assumptions, just like this loan. We don't know where the revenues are going to end up because there are things we can't control. By way of example, we get $400,000 in room taxes for hotels. When the process started 2 years ago, we just plugged in that $400,000. It's recurring every year. And then the policy made by the state government was to stop those hotels, and the $400,000 went away. And it was only after I went in and sat outside the governor's office did the DOR come up with a formula to keep us whole. But for that 4-month period, we didn't know if we had to cut $400,000 or not cut $400,000. So it's a very fluid process. And to Lisa's point, which is a good one, the DOR provides us guidance on policy and best practices, and then we have to apply it to our conditions. Thank you for that question. Who was next? We had 3 people. Would you give them yours, Biz? And then over here. And then we're going to take a poll if you choose to participate.
Hello, this is Joanne O'Reilly from Precinct 2. And Joanne O'Reilly. Okay. I understand perfectly what Lisa and David and policy is. I mean, I've lived with policy, very large, I've worked for very large financial firms, and we were policy to the barrel. And I understand fully. So I just wanted to make a comment on that, because I think we talked about it a lot. But I wanted to know more about the MSBA. When does that money come in? Actually, when does that money actually come into play? That was my question. And and also, we started this conversation really with bridges. How much of the bridges, what is the cost of the bridges? I don't think anyone actually said. It's going to cost a lot, but no one actually mentioned it.
There's only an estimate, but it's between $2 and $4 million.
Okay.
So to that question, with respect to, I just forgot the question.
That's okay.
What was it?
Okay, that was the MSBA. The MSBA.
MSBA. TJ can speak to this.
When does that come in?
And TJ can't speak to this. They will give us what's called progress payments based upon a schedule of values.
Okay.
Okay? The reason they divide it into segments of the project. And they're pretty timely with that because we have to pay the contractors. The delay, which got pretty ugly last week with the governor's office and with the state treasurer who runs the MSBA, was that we're 4 years in getting the final payment, which is retainage. They hold back all this money, and they've got this brand new bureaucratic process. And I made a few enemies, as Biz will tell you, streamlining that bureaucratic process last week. So we will get that money from a project from 6 years ago, 5 years ago. We will get that money hopefully by the first of the year, but no later than February.
Thank you.
Thank you. There was one more question, I believe. Go right ahead, sir.
Marty West, Precinct 6.
Hey, Marty.
I'd like to suggest some logic to choosing which term is most beneficial. Which term is most beneficial depends on someone's age.
Agreed.
For those portion of the population less than 50, their remaining life expectancy is longer than the term of the debt. For a 20-year term, they would pay less interest on the total debt. For the portion of the population who is over 60, their remaining life expectancy is much shorter than the term.
Don't remind me, Marty.
Yes. So a 30-year term, they would pay 1/3 less interest and principal for each year they remain alive. Also, the younger people would also pay that 1/3 less, but they'd be paying it for the full term. So it boils down to the benefit of a long-term for older population is greater than the benefit of a short-term for a young population.
I appreciate
My
that point.
opinion. Thank you.
I appreciate that point. You made fun of me being 67. So, folks, you do not have to respond. If it's a personal decision, feel free to not raise your hand. Let's go left to right. Option 1, option 2, option 3 in front of you. Option 1, option 2, option 3. Before we take that vote, I want to underscore something Marty just said. Don't let anybody say, hey, it's only $5 a month. $5 a month for a lot of people is a lot of money. So don't let anybody be judgmental. Sure, can we save a barrel of money doing it one way and spend $5 a month a year? That's just factually correct. But that may not work for some people, and we need to respect that. So there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. It's just your point of view. So you need not participate. I understand it's a personal decision. But from left to right, the first one would be the 20-year note. If you support that, please raise your hand and allow Biz to count the vote. The first one is the 20-year note. I'm sorry? Okay, the next option, the middle one. Yes, you can't vote twice. The next option is the 25-year note. Please raise your hand. Thank you, John. And the next option, the last option, is the 30-year note. Please raise your hand. Well, all of your votes are valid. All of your votes are valid. I'll communicate this to the board before they vote on this. I will also take a poll on my Facebook and ask people. We'll post that last page if you think it's clear enough. We'll post that for the public and ask them to weigh in as well. Please talk to your neighbors. It's not a vote where the highest one wins. It's your feedback, and that's critical. Thank you all for coming. I'm very grateful. Yes, Peter.
Does the land transfer affect the entrance to the school?
Yes.
And the entrance to the school will be?
Off of Fano Drive. They're gonna go in Fano Drive.
That's a huge.
You're gonna come in on Fano Drive and then go right onto the school property.
How is that spelled?
Pardon me?
How is that spelled?
FANO.
F-A-N-O. And this is what should have happened when the public said the building committee was designated after all the years. Thanks for that.
I've heard wonderful things about her.
I didn't get to ask this question. I know, I talked to all the people who were on that board, and this is why I said.